Hi there. I'm so happy you're here. Here's what you'll gain by listening to the very last second of this conversation with Krista Nunez. This episode features my friend. Krista is a dynamic community leader who shares her practical strategies for securing major grants and building successful community programs through her work with Cuba International, the Ubuntu Library, and the Learning Farm in the city I love and live in, Ithaca, New York. You'll learn strategies for successful grant writing, how to build strong local partnerships, and how meaningful community impact comes from addressing systemic barriers with intention. Stay with us. I am so excited to have you join our conversation.
This is Solutions Coaching and Teaching Strategies, the podcast that extends education beyond the classroom. A show that offers educators and caregivers strategies to try right away and ensure every student receives the inspiration and support they need to thrive.
I am Olivia Wall, and I am so happy to welcome my friend and guest today, Krista Nunez. Let me tell you a little bit about Krista. Krista is an African-American entrepreneur, researcher, agriculture educator, social justice practitioner, and storyteller. She focuses her work on creating cooperative land governance models as well as equitable food systems within African diaspora communities. Most importantly, Krista is a beacon of light in our local community. Krista, it is an honor to welcome you as a guest and to share your amazing strategies for taking your nonprofit organization as a community connector for the children that live in Ithaca. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Libby. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Yes. I start every episode asking guests who an inspiring educator is from their life. Would you share with us?
I would love to. I have so many, and it was hard to choose one, but there was one woman who was instrumental in guiding my life's work, and I didn't know it at the time because I was in high school. And in high school, you don't know really what you're doing or who you are even, but it's a woman named Faye White Shine. She had a hyphenated name way before, a lot of people have her last name White Shine. She just was this amazing Black woman in our community. I grew up in East Lansing, Michigan. She ran a program within the state of Michigan Department of Natural Resources, so Michigan DNR, that focused on youth of color who love nature and the environment, who had an interest in learning more and serving the community in ways that supported ecology and community engaged nature preservation. And so my mother worked at the Michigan Department of Civil Service, and then she worked for the state of Michigan for her pretty much her whole career. And she connected me with Faye when I was a sophomore in high school and met Faye. She was just sharp and funny and smart and but serious and just had this level of gravitas and respectability that really was so attractive. And she just had this wonderful opportunity and shared about the opportunity and really what her goals were to help more Black and brown kids to be able to become civil servants, to become government, not just government workers, but people
Yeah.
who were leading it within departments within state government in Michigan. And she gave me an opportunity to work for the Department of Natural Resources as a young person. So every summer between my sophomore, junior, and the summer after my senior year, I did everything from um, write up legal documents having to do with DNR's engagement with the federal EPA and Superfund documentation. So I would do filing and sort of had a desk job. And then I had summer 2 summers where I actually was in the field and I got to survey landfills, and I would be on these big, what just looked like giant hills, but had, potentially hazardous polluted, pollution inside of these hills. And we would survey them, we would map them, and we would do soil tests, we would do water tests, groundwater tests, we would do aquifer, like we dig down and see if leachate was getting into our drinking water
Wow.
in Michigan. And I had what I felt and still feel was a really, really important job
Yeah.
as a young person, helping keep the citizens of my state, the residents of my state, um, healthy and safe from potential air quality pollutants and water and soil pollutants. And it was the foundation of my understanding of how important it is to protect ecology and support communities in having agency of where they live, and how they're being supported by the governing bodies that are supposed to protect them.
Well, that I guess this is incredible for me to hear this story because it's such a foundational, um, I guess, moment for me to know about you because that's what you do in our community. And it's so a holy inspiration because that this is you in a nutshell. And you also you bring joy, incredible amounts of joy. And I shared with you, I have this core memory of having my younger son at an event at a school. And I didn't know you then. And he runs over, you had a table set up for the learning farm, which we're going to talk about. And he grabs a juice, a little cup of juice, and he runs back and he has a giant mustache of red. And he said, what is that? He goes, I don't know. It's the most delicious juice I've ever had, Mom. I think he was 3 years old. And he said, I've got to find like what this is. So we walk over and it was beet juice from your juicery. I thought, who is this human that got my son to drink beet juice and think it was absolutely delicious? So that was the stars were aligned, and I thought, this person's amazing, and you are. You're simply incredible, Krista. So
We're back at you. I have my partner in crime here, Pete. We're recording a podcast if you want to say hello. But I developed that juice so that
hello, Pete.
yeah, your child and other children could feel so happy about drinking beet juice and the juices of fruit and other vegetables. So that was
Yes,
I remember that moment
it's so
for
good.
many, many years ago. And I feel like that was a moment where I was free time. This was it. It was just like, reinforcing what I was hoping to be able to achieve. So that was the most encouraging thing ever. So thank you for allowing us to engage Henry in what he enjoyed that day and what we were really gratified by.
Yeah, and the main thing is that every podcast I try to offer listeners strategies for, things that we are seeing as challenges in the community. And something you are masterful with is taking your nonprofit organization, Cuba International, and creating grant opportunities or connecting the community through grant opportunities to just be a better place for all children to live and exist in. So, I want to offer listeners for this episode strategies of how in the world you secure the grants you do. Again, with the umbrella company or umbrella organization, Cuba International. And then I want to highlight your work with the Ubuntu Library as well as the Learning Farm. So let's jump in. Um, Talk a little bit about Cuba International. What is your mission?
So Coupa's mission since its inception 12 years ago now has been to empower young people and their families and community members at large in their engagement with food systems. So helping just the people to be able to have a say in how they eat, where they live, what they read, and just being able to become what we call farmer scholars, people who are at the head of their food systems, who support and grow food for the community, who are empowered landholders and land stewards, and who are deeply engaged in the critical nature of literacy and understanding and how those systems were built, in order to be able to support their agency and making changes within those systems. So um, yeah, it's a highly collaborative organization, and we're really proud to be able to be making change in this realm. There's a lot of work to do, but yeah, I'm eager to share some of the grant writing successes and some of what I think are the reasons why we've had some success recently.
So our lives intersected again when you reached out to me for the Ubuntu library, and just we were talking titles, if that's a thing. Like let's find some beautiful picture books, and get them into the hands of kids. And so now let's pivot. You have the Ubuntu library that is a grant funded program, and what does that do for our community?
Yeah, so Ubuntu Library is one of those projects that followed our hearts. I have 3 children. I made sure they had a healthy amount of books, a number of books in their home libraries in their bedrooms, making sure they had really good reading materials, make sure they had really juicy, interesting things to read from the get, whether they were board books early on and then chapter books later. And my kids are avid readers, and um, not necessarily, we don't necessarily adhere to sort of this systemic way of looking at children's abilities, but in terms of all of the school measures, they are exceeding expectations in so many ways, and I think it's because they have read an array of different materials, and because my mom, I know, and I'm connected to other mothers, I know I'm not the only mother who is deeply concerned with how well our students feel, how comfortable they feel in school settings, how able they are to follow what's happening and to be able to contribute to the conversations that are happening in classrooms and in the world. Um, and so Ubuntu Library was really about supporting families and loved ones in providing really good reading materials for their kids to have at home, and not just library materials, because libraries are wonderful and absolutely necessary, but having your own reading materials that belong to you that you can read and reread, you know, 1 month and then come back to a year, and something that you hold dear and that you might have dog-eared and is your own copy of something that you love. Those are important things to us. So having really solid, beautiful books um, that belong to the children is what that program is about. And it kind of partners with our Quarter Acre for the People project. So that whole Farm to Scholar um, partnership. So the scholarship comes from Ubuntu Library having a really beautiful library in the bedrooms and homes of kids and families, and then Quarter Acre for the People really helping people access land, co-steward land, and own land together um, in a cooperative sort of land trust fashion, so that can live in community and actually control where they live and how they eat.
So let's talk strategies, because the resources you have to have at your fingertips in order to get those books into children's homes, into the hands of children. What are your strategies? How do you connect with people? What do you do that we can take away?
Yeah, no, and I think you mentioned one key component was my conversation with you. I'm looking behind you, and you have that amazing library behind you, and like me being able to connect to community members who get it, who really
Yeah.
understand how important it is to have a wide array of reading materials at your fingertips, and what that is power and what that power can do, was foundational. So me having that conversation with you providing me some really, really important input in terms of these are the things that I would share with these kids who you want to learn, you want to have learn these components and different things. And so your recommendations were foundational. I feel like our conversations with local funders like the Park Foundation and Friends of the Library, and Tompkins County Community Foundation and others. Um, folks who really understood from the get-go what this whole farmer scholar concept was. And there were some entities who really believed in one program over the other. And, would fund because it was aligned, Friends of the Library obviously aligns well with Ubuntu Library, and they were early funder, and then Puerto Rico for the People, Tompkins County Community Foundation and Park Foundation really understood people's agency on land, and so they became early funders of that project. And so the combination of those early local foundational resources was really important to kind of just provide the basic groundwork and underscoring of being able to pay staff and buy books and
Yeah.
create connections with the Ithaca City School District and be able to have something real to offer to the students and in that in the schools in that district. So that was sort of phase one.
Krista, how did families connect with you in order to say, like, hey, we'd love to get books through the Ubuntu Library?
Yeah, so we had an initial push where my kids go to a local elementary school where a lot of the parents were really excited about what we're doing here at the Learning Farm. I told them about Ubuntu Library. They helped me get the word out. We had people sign up online on our website, and then we said, this is wonderful. And we need to reach students who might not have a parent that has heard
Yes.
about this. There might be a barrier to, they don't know the people that go to my kid's school. They don't have access potentially to a computer or time to sign their kid up on a website. How can we get to the kids that really need it? And that connection between Dr. Nia Nunn and what she's doing literacy wise at Southside Community Center provided access to some other community members and children, and sending books directly to their after school children was really important early on. Working directly with the reading teachers within Ithaca City School District, um, folks at BJM, some of the reading teachers really helped me to get into classrooms and give books to entire classrooms of children that we do. And then we would send out emails um, to grade level teachers and, you know, do whole classrooms within different elementary and middle school
Yeah.
classes as well. I will say also one of those early conversations that has turned into an ongoing thought partnership was with Bridget Haberman.
You're walking in my mind. I was just going to say Children's Reading Connection.
Children's
Shout
Reading
out.
Connection.
Yeah.
That is a person, if you talk about people who understand, this
Phenomenal.
person understands where this is
Yeah.
going and is always innovating what it means to provide literacy education
Yes.
to children locally, always doing something fun, always just deeply thinking about the children at every level and is
Sure
willing to
is.
do something new, something untried, something crazy to make books available to children. So I cannot praise Bridget enough. She's has become one of my closest friends here and inspires me daily with the work that she's doing. Um, and, by hand putting different language translations into books to make sure that the students who are coming here that might not have English as their first language have a book with their particular language translation. She goes child by child to make sure that they have when they get
It's
into the
incredible.
yeah, it's just kind of crazy, but these are the people, you and
Yep.
Bridget and a number of other people, that I go, um, yeah, you do all the things that come into mind because if the children feel that they are cared for, that they're being thought of, and that the resources that are being given them are catered specifically to what they want and what they need. They're going to want to read those books. They're going to want to read them often, and they're going to want to engage their best selves in school and outside in the world as well.
Something you said earlier, it keeps just coming back to my brain that, we want our children to feel like they can be contributors to the conversations. And I before we move on from the Ubuntu Library, I want to also just say that you spend a great amount of care in curating libraries and reaching out to authors that represent the children that are reading their book. And
Mhm.
so they feel seen, they feel heard. So I want to point that out as well. The amount of curation that goes into the beautiful books you are
Mhm.
selecting to not only bring awareness to the world of agriculture and land of ownership, but also just like, let's help kids feel like they are heard, like they are seen, and not just with language, but with every nuance of their person. So I'm grateful for that. And let's talk grants because they're no joke.
Yep.
And I know there are never enough minutes in the day whenever we're in touch, you are getting calls on your phone. Like I think we've tried to have coffee or tea at this desk before, and you're getting calls from farmers. Like you're pulled in 500 different directions and you seem so together at every moment. So I don't know how you acquire the grants you do. Let's give a huge shout out to the Learning Farm right now. You just received a crazy grant. So let's talk about that grant and then how in the world you did it. So talk Learning Farm and the grant you just received, please.
Well, Olivia, those are all high compliments coming from you, and I really I admire you right back. And I think that's the power of womanhood, and I think
Yeah.
this grant that the Learning Farm received is another instance of the power of women in leadership. This grant was initiated and brought about by Anna Kellis, our assembly person here in our region, our representative in the assembly in New York State, came to my farm, visited my farm, her staff, um, found this farm through another event that was here at Quinceañera that was held here. And, Stacy Demas was on staff with somebody, person, Callis, and they came out and saw what we were trying to do, explained everything that and our goals and sort of the vision. And I just thought I was having a wonderful time, talking about what we do with somebody. And lo and behold, we get a call from her saying, there's this funding opportunity and we'd like to support the building of a community kitchen because it sounds like a wonderful thing. And I'd also like to bring one of my co-leaders within the assembly, a speaker, Carl Hesty, to your farm, who represents New York City and several boroughs there. And he came out. Anna brought him out. They walked my farm. There were tears shed. He was remembering his time as a Boy Scout growing up in New York City and how he was able to camp and how that was transformative to him and how nature really speaks to him. And this co-vision that we shared of bringing kids who have systemically been excluded from access to nature, who are growing up in urban areas, who don't have opportunities to breathe fresh air and enjoy, peace and tranquility in natural environments. We had this vision, and that grant from Anna expanded into this grant to develop farm stay housing and places where people could camp and stay and do
Oh,
nature
good.
immersions and farm immersions. And so it just blossomed into what it is now, and this $650,000 grant that will help build this kitchen, and it will also build these tents and cabins where people will be able to stay and be here for an extended period, which is so exciting. And it's like every time I want, it's like I can't believe it's happening. I
I
had a
know.
20, 10 to 15-year really you know, mindset of like, it's going to take me that long to fundraise to do something like this. And that she just shortened it. Not to say it's not taking some years just to get even the approval to get it built. It takes time. Um, but it's happening in a much shorter period because of her vision for what we wanted to do and how she was willing to bring in other partners. And I can't praise her work and how she's really fighting for our communities and representing us so well in the state.
It makes me get choked up because I know how hard you work
Mm.
for everything that goes on with the learning farm. But I mean, my children have benefited from spending time on the farm. and they remember it, and this opportunity to bring outside community members and experience that peace, and again, the joy that you share and the children live with the animals, and just the I can't. You deserve this. You've worked so hard. So when I saw that news story, I was like, yes. I was like yelling to myself, oh yeah. See?" So it's a really, really big deal. Yeah, with the grants, how do you do it? Because it's such an undertaking. What does it involve?
I think, for us, it's been what a lot of large institutions understand, which it takes capacity building to be able to fully develop that level of support. But we understand that grant writing is a team effort. It is something that requires not just an ED to go and chase down these grants and find time to cut out of their schedule with programming and staffing and all that, but to focus on the grant. It can't just be one person where that responsibility lies. It has to be a team where you're co-developing a really strong application together and really envisioning what the grant could support together. And so for us, our recent wins with the USDA and the U.S. Forest Service, we've had, in place of our early struggles with the yeses and the nos of like, oh, I understand what you're doing. That doesn't, do people really want land? I don't know. I just, do kids, when having kids having books at home really make any difference? Like people having question marks.
Maddening. Yeah.
Well, it's like, yeah. But like, no, not every wedding funder really has the time to understand your work to the level that you have understood and haven't done the research, because it's impossible for everybody to research everything that needs funding. But from moving from that paradigm, we got a lot of no's initially, a lot of no's over the years, and then to a place where in the past year or two, 3 years, we started getting some really big yeses, $1.2
Yeah.
million, $2.4 million, over a period of years. We're now able to purchase land. We're now able to develop an intentional community on the land that we're purchasing, getting funding to purchase 2 more pieces of land and really develop our vision in real ways. And that's only because the grants that have received those yeses have been super strong and fully developed and fully, um, you know, compiled in ways that hit all the marks that funders are looking for. And that,
What are some of those marks? What
yeah,
would you, yeah.
I think, for instance, our land access grant, which for me was mind blowing, just the idea that the federal government would be cool with this really innovative um, idea of purchasing land for new community land trusts and people to live on. Before COVID, before the George Floyd, and before the BLM, marches, I think that would have been unheard of. Before the USDA had their equity committee in place, I don't think that would ever happen. But
Yeah.
change has happened, very slowly and gradually to the point where they're like, yes, new people who have systemically been excluded from land ownership should have access to land to build farms, businesses on, and need training and support to be able to achieve success on those lands. And they need ongoing resources from government in order to make those things happen. It's like, you understand, like, finally, you
Yeah, they
understand
get it.
the thing, but because
Yeah.
they have people in place who really understand, have read
Okay.
the briefs, have done the research on why that makes sense. And so the marks that they were looking for are you building in a plan wherein after this grant, you have systems in place where these farmers are going to get ongoing supports and resources, where they have a community that's being developed, where they have systems of support and engagement ongoing amongst themselves. They have relationships that are been built more on the ground in their local region, with resource providers like NRCS and the Forestry Service, different localized resource providers. So making sure that even after the grant period's over, that there is a sustainability to the program. Making sure that you have adequate understanding of some of the history and why the big question of why is this important? I know you think it's important, but like what's the research? Why? Um, do you understand what that is? And also who are your partners? Who are you working with? Do you have adequate staffing? Are you paying the people who are doing the work? Are you paying them adequately? Um, who are your partners? How are you compensating your partners because for the work that they're doing to support the project? Are you hitting your marks in terms of outreach? How are your outreach, communications worded? Are they in Spanish? Also, how are they sort of going to bring in and recruit new people? And how does that system work? I think those are the questions that we really had good answers for, and we had
Yeah.
thoughtful about, making sure that we communicated because we do beautiful work and so many of our local nonprofits do beautiful work, but can you communicate all the little things that you're doing already because they're really meaningful?
They are. And so when you did that, when you saw the pivot or the shift from no's to yes, what did you do as an organization to get the word out? Because if I'm outside of Ithaca and I'm not understanding the impact, how did you get that word out so it was crystal clear?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of really expanding our membership. So I became a member of really important organizations like the Northeast Farmers of Color and Black Farmers United. Um, and I started to do more work with Cornell and working with other partners like Groundswell Center for Local Food and Farming, and really leveraging the expansive networks of those entities and making sure that all the people that we're partnered with know what's happening and
Okay.
knowing that their membership will be supporting and be able to access what we're doing. Making sure that those partners had a complete knowledge of what the project was, if they haven't been included already. Um, and then I think it really I think it really amounts to ongoing communications, really ramping up our social media. It sounds so silly, but like, because I avoid it like the plague personally, but like, making sure that wherever people are reading things and getting information, that we had information out there. And, even in an age when rural broadband is still not happening to the extent that it should be. People still have phones and can go into town and are checking their social media and can get information that way. Um, and I think it was, having a newsletter expanding, every time people are like, I've heard, can you add me to your list? Or like we add
Yeah.
people all every day pretty much.
Krista, the newsletter, I've got to say, the newsletter, I look forward to getting it. And that is my way because social for me, I try to not be on a ton. I'm on in the morning, I check at the end, but the newsletter gets me because it gives me a perfect recap of what's going on in your life on the farm with all of the initiatives. And also, it helps me know how I can support different projects that you have on the horizon or what you're doing now. So please keep doing the newsletter. I want you to know I value it. Yeah, it's
Wow, great.
crazy good.
That's music to my ears, Libby, because I sometimes go, who is reading? Nobody's reading, but
I
you're
am reading it. I look forward to it.
I mean, we work with local just fantastic communicator and community leader, Kimberly Wyman. And he has worked in a number of different spaces, but leads her own organization in terms of communicating about different important things. And she has allowed us to be on her roster of people that she's supporting. And I'm so grateful because she does an amazing job of
So good.
communicating what we're doing very clearly and in a way that is exciting to read. It's not super boring because sometimes it's like just
No, it's
describing
captivating.
like, who cares about what a grant is? But like it's like she understands why it's important to and what's interesting to highlight about it. So yeah, Kimberly Weinberg,
Shout out.
shout out.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just letting people know. I think a lot of it's word of mouth, making sure that we have the right partners, making sure that we are doing the work that people have asked us to do, with people that are deeply in love with this community and can work with others in ways that are sustainable and supportive and loving and caring. So we've done a great job of really refining, um, yeah, our partnerships and our staff. And we have some amazing people who are just deeply caring, hardworking, loving people who understand the task at hand and work well together.
Well, people want to surround themselves by you and your beautiful family because of that level of seriousness you have for the work that has to be done and the commitment. High attention, high commitment is the definition I'm leaning on when it comes to engagement. And so I'm fascinated to leave listeners thinking about where you will be a couple of years from now, even. I can't wait to have a circle back conversation because you were just awarded the Fulbright Fellowship to travel to Ghana. And so, like, please just leave us living vicariously. When are you going? What is the plan? And then, what are you hoping to bring to the farm, bring to the Cuba from that visit, from that
Yeah.
gift?
I mean, it is just overwhelming to have written something that I didn't have a team. When I write grants, it's a team. This full write with like me
You.
explaining what I want to do research wise, with me going as a researcher and bringing my family. So this idea of this cross cultural exchange of liberation knowledge that happened between MLK and Bayard Rustin and a bunch of other civil rights activists in the U.S. and folks who were gaining independence for Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah being their first president, he came to the U.S. As a student, went to Lincoln University, learned a lot about civil rights in the U.S. Um, you know, creating relationships with W.E.B. Du Bois and Martin Luther King and others, and how early on that Ghanaian US connection helped develop the American Civil Rights Movement as well as the Ghanaian independence movement
Yes.
in this really overlapping time period. And my questions around, has that legacy of cross cultural liberation exchange, um, how has that followed us into the present day? Are there African Americans and Ghanaians working together in the present day? Are there land sharing and community visioning happening in Ghana and the U.S. between these groups? How are we carrying forward that beautiful legacy? These are my questions because I feel like, if we can answer how we share knowledge across culture and the past informs how we share knowledge across culture in the present. I work with Stephen Henlock and Michelle Seneca from the Gayacono Nation. And I work with Latinx folks and Asian Americans and other African Americans like myself. And we're creating these projects where we have come together across language and across culture, but still have found ways to align ourselves according to our values and what we hold dear,
Yeah.
and are looking to create these intentional farming communities. And but we're always wondering on whose shoulders are we standing? Who are our predecessors? Who worked together to create new freedom-oriented landscapes for everybody? And how can we sort of emulate those folks, and how can we carry forward that legacy in our work today?
Well, you just gave us talking points for our next conversation upon your return. Yeah, I want answers. We need answers to your questions, and we'll start from there, friend.
That sounds lovely. I am looking for answers that I will be happy to report. Hopefully,
Good.
a successful journey, and appreciate your support, Libby.
Yeah. Well, so I will make sure to include links to Cuba website and get so everyone can get in touch to support you and your vision and your mission. I cannot let you know, Krista, how dear you are to me as a person and how grateful I am to be able to live in the community that you bring so much value to. And you always have children in mind, deep in your heart. It's just everything. So thank you for taking the time in your very busy schedule to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Libby. It's been a pleasure talking to you as always, and I'm happy to come back anytime. And thank you for making time for me to talk today.
Yeah. All right. Take care, friend. Skolutions Coaching and Teaching Strategies is created, produced, and edited by me, Olivia Wall. Thank you to my older son, Benjamin, who created the music that's playing in the background. You can follow and listen to Skolutions wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to never miss an episode and watch on YouTube. Thank you to my guest, Krista Nunez, for sharing her practical strategies for securing major grants and building successful community programs. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email at skolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Let me know how you and your community have been successful with the grant writing process. How do you build strong local partnerships? And how do you address systemic barriers with intention? Tune in every Monday for the best research-backed coaching and teaching strategies you can apply right away to better the lives of the children in your care. Stay tuned for my bonus episode every Friday, where I'll share how I applied what I learned from the guests in schools that week. See you then.